This is Gary Nelson, and you're watching Average Joe Sports Talk.
All right, we are here in Montgomery, Alabama with Southside's new head coach, Coach Gary Nelson. So glad for you to host me down here, and this is a true honor to get to know you. And I know you've already had a meet and greet with Southside, but this is going to be a little bit more personable.
Sure.
Coach, I'm going to start off in your early years. From my understanding, you grew up in Bayou La Batre, Alabama.
Right.
What was that like? And the fame from the Forrest Gump movie, anywhere you go, probably in America or in the world, I'm sure, as soon as you say Bayou La Batre, do they remind you of Forrest Gump?
Yeah, they absolutely do. You know, it's so funny. The first question you get is, you know, did you know Bubba Gump? And I'll always tend to joke, no, but I went to school with Sister Sally or some mess like that. So, you know, it really is. It's funny that that's the association people have with it. It's such a great community. You know, it is just a blue-collar, hard-nosed, hard-working community, and you know, that's really was the foundational piece of what made me who I am. You know, I came up with a lot of people who, you know, a lot of people who lived a very different life than what many in the state of Alabama do. You know, being on the coast, it's really its own world. You know, and so that was really important for us, and I think in playing at Alma Bryant, you know, at the time we really hung our hat on the idea that, you know, we're set apart, we're a little different from even the rest of the folks in Mobile County, and you know, that was something that was an identity for us, and it helped us to, you know, really work hard and to try to be tough as we played, and you know, and it also, you know, for me personally, you know, it made me work hard in the classroom. You know, it was kind of this idea that, I mean, if my dad can go get on a boat and work for me year-round, regardless of what the weather's doing, then, you know, the least I can do is sit in the classroom and take notes and pay attention. You know, so it really, in those kind of formative years for me, it was important to live out the values of that community.
What type of work did your dad do?
So my dad is actually works in the oil industry now. He operates crew and supply boats. They take men and supplies to and from oil rigs. But growing up, he was a shrimper. So he ran a shrimp boat, 2 different boats he was a captain of as I was a kid. So
that's not easy.
No, it's not. It's not easy. And you know, I would go down there with him when he would come home, and you know, I would spend my time on the boats with him. And you know, my stepdad hung iron. You know, so it was you know, those guys, they put the work in.
Schoolwork's not so hard after that.
Schoolwork's not so hard, and you know, those guys are out doing that to make sure that, you know, make sure I got cleats when I play on Friday night.
Absolutely.
You know, so that was an important thing for me, and it's been really cool to be able to share that, you know, that value and that ethic with the kids I've coached over the years.
Now, it seems like, just from hearing you talking just this brief time, kind of your football style, not only you but your team, kind of took on that blue collar mentality of what you was talking about, Alma Bryant itself, from the hard work of the parents and the community and things, which kind of instilled in you is what I'm taking from this. And with that being said, who were some of those early influences in your life? I know you just spoke of your father and some. Who were maybe some coaches or something that you started picking up stuff on?
It starts, you know, I was blessed to have great youth coaches.
There you go.
We had a great youth program, the Bayou Youth Football Conference. You know, I started playing there in the mid-1990s, and you know, my best friend encouraged me to play. I really didn't want to, and I'm thankful every day that I let him talk me into playing football. He ended up being a teammate for me through high school.
Nice.
You know, and our youth coaches, they were really the first people to coach me and to teach me to care about a game. You know, Coach Raymond Barber, Norman Darby, Steve Hicks at the time were just these great youth coaches, and guys who, you know, I played with their sons throughout high school, and really, you know, they really instilled, you know, the passion for the game, and then, you know, moving to middle school for me was the big moment where I realized that I wanted to be a coach. And I had my middle school football coach starting in 7th grade was Coach Ingram at Alba Middle School. And he's really the first guy that, while other people had taught me, a lot of values, he's really the first person that taught me to believe in myself. And so that was just a new identity to sort of step into as I'm a guy who, I do have value. I can do things that maybe I didn't think I could do. And he's really the first person that made me believe in myself. And, his staff, we had, I'll never forget, Coach Roy Richardson and John Kubik. They're guys I still try to maintain a relationship with because they're just incredible coaches. And then, moving into high school, I was so blessed. I had, we had some turnover with our head coaching position there at Alma Bryant, and that's been an unfortunate thing for them. They've had that throughout, for forever since the creation of school. But we had assistant coaches who really became sort of the glue that held the program together. And, I'm so blessed that one of those that happens to be my uncle, Scott Meredith. He was our defensive coordinator for a number of years and unfortunately had to retire from coaching last year due to an accident that he sustained on the job. But he's just an incredible coach and an incredible fixture in that community, and somebody who believed in me when a lot of other people didn't. And Eric Collier, who's now the head football coach at Theodore High School, he was my head coach my senior year, but had been an assistant coach with us, and really a guy that I can't thank enough just for the way he invested in me. My offensive line coach was Hammond Brownlee, who's a guy that still I tell stories about playing for him. So I go on and on. I love football. I love my football coaches. They literally inspire me every day to do the things that I get to do, and that's without even getting into college and the guys that coach me there, who I could continue to go on and on about.
Absolutely. Were you multi-sport guy back in the day or not?
So, at Alma Bryant in the early 2000s, there were really two sports. There was football and spring training. And,
that's awesome.
We did, I did, that baseball at the time was those guys were really building that, and it came on during the time we were there. But, really for me, it was two sports. And, I did track, but I really did track because my offensive line coach coached me in throwing shot put and discus, and I would go over there and get to do some footwork drills and work on my O-line technique when when I was standing around waiting to throw the shot. So that was my second sport, but really, I mean, it was football year round.
Now, actually, you did go on to play college football. I know you just mentioned that, and I do remember in your meet and greet with Southside, you talked about some of your success, the offensive line in. What was that like? And once you got to that level, and you're like, hey, this is where I'm going to get the tools, my final tools, before I go out and become a head coach. What did you pick up from that?
Yeah, so that you were spot on. That was the opportunity to really begin to grow my craft as far as what I was going to do as a coach. I was so blessed to play for Mike Turk at Huntington. He's been there.
Hall of Famer, correct?
He's in the Division II Hall of Fame as a player. He won 2 national championships at Troy. At the time, Troy State as a quarterback in the '80s.
It's amazing.
Went on and coached there for I think 18 years under Coach Blakeney. And he came over to Huntington in 2004, and he is just such a seminal part of my life. He's somebody that I still call on, when I need advice, and I'm just so thankful that my life intersected with that program at the same time that he came and started to lead it. And he was, the thing that has made him so successful is that he gets a lot out of all of his players, but he also surrounds himself with incredible assistant coaches and lets them go to work. And we were so fortunate when I played there to have an incredibly high caliber coaching staff. Charlie Goodyear, our strength and conditioning coach, he recruited me and was our offensive line coach at the time. And he's just one of the best men, and he's probably the best coach that I've ever been around as far as motivating players, motivating people. And the thing about all of those guys that was so incredible is that they understand how to coach people and then coach players.
There you go.
And that's really been the thing that I've tried to hang my hat on, is being somebody that, understands. If you ask me, how do I think we did this year? Well, I really don't know. You're going to have to ask me in 30 years, because what did I send the world? And Coach Goodyear and Coach Turk and those guys are really great about that. And so really, when I got there, I was recruited as a defensive lineman. I'm kind of a tweener naturally. Like I kind of define versatility as the inability to do one thing really well. And so that's sort of what, I was kind of a guy you could put anywhere on the field and be like, he's okay,
pretty good,
but he's not the best one at anything. So eventually moved to the offensive side of the ball and played tight end for a couple of seasons, and then finished my career. I had some injuries, and I wasn't quite fast enough to be a receiving threat as a tight end anyway. But then I had some injuries that sort of took away any chance I had to be a receiving threat. So I ended up finishing my career at offensive tackle. And but the great thing about that journey, is that because of all that, I wasn't necessarily the most celebrated player at Huntington College, but I had the opportunity to be in a college meeting room on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball at tight end, we would often join the receiver meeting room, and then I had the opportunity to do that as an offensive lineman as well. So really, you see so much exposure to the entire breadth of the game of football with some incredibly high caliber coaches at the time. So I was really able to learn so much, and so that really was what really fueled the earliest developments of my coaching philosophy in terms of X's and O's and schemes and all that sort of stuff. Was that time I had it in college.
That's invaluable what you just said, because you don't know how many players go through their whole career and never get to see that.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
a lot of guys play one thing, and that's kind of what they've done. And I was really fortunate to get to move around some. And honestly, as a coach, I kind of tend to tell people that whatever the strengths are on the coaching staff, I can sort of balance. I don't have to coach one position. I can kind of move around, and so that's made it fun for me. It keeps it fresh every year, and then at the same time, it helps balance the coaching staff, because sometimes you're just looking for a really good ball coach to join your staff, and it may be that, well, he's an O-line guy and I'm an O-line guy. Well, let's plug him in at O-line and I'll go do something else. And so that's allowed us to get creative with the way we structure the coaching staff too.
Flexibility. Mm-hmm. And when you got out of school, what was your first job?
So my first job, our quarterback at Huntington, my junior year, had gotten out and accepted the head football position at a small private school south of Montgomery called Hooper Academy. Okay. And so he was there, and a couple of our teammates were helping him coach. And he had an opening, and so I decided to join the staff down there, and started out with a good friend of mine.
That's good.
And so we were in a cool situation. 22 and 23 years old respectively, and kind of running a program. And then at the 11th hour, right before my first year, he ended up accepting a position as a graduate assistant for Coach Joey Jones and Bill Clark at South Alabama at the time. So we had a coach come in late in July, and I ended up staying on and working there for 3 years, and really it was such a great opportunity for me, because I learned I learned how to coach my own position. I learned how to motivate players, but more than that, I got classroom experience, and I learned how to be a teacher, and I learned how to connect with kids during the academic day, and so it was such a unique challenge, being a very young teacher coach, and those first few years out are so critical to your development, and I was just really fortunate.
You were still young enough to connect, though.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So at the time, I coached a little harder then than I do now. I was running around the field, and I might show up with a bald head and ready to fire guys up, and now I'm a little more laid back than I was at the time. So I was pretty intense in those early days. And
after those 3 years, where did you move to?
So after those three, I went to Montgomery Academy.
Okay.
And it's such an incredible it's an incredible school, and it was a great professional opportunity for me. Coach Anthony McCall, hired me. He was our athletic director and head football coach and head basketball coach. So he had a full plate, and he was juggling some really complicated jobs. And what we were able to do, as I moved over there, and we had been struggling. He was trying to rebuild the football program, which had been a once proud football program. Had fallen on some tough times. It culminated in a 2010 season that saw them go 0-10. And so Coach McCall took it over in 2011, and they won 3 games. So I got there in 12, and we'd gone 3-17 in 2 years. So it was a rebuild, to say the least. And that first year was really about 2 things. It was about listening. So you're just observing. Why is the program in the state that it's in? And then it was about connecting. So who are the kids that we have that we think can help us turn this thing around? And what do we need to do now to get them to create that buy-in so that we can shift the paradigm and get some results? And so really, in 2012, I spent the time building relationships with the juniors and seniors on the roster. The juniors and sophomores on the roster in preparation for them becoming juniors and seniors the next year. And I will say that group in 2012, we had a small senior class who, while they didn't have a great year that year, they really continued to compete and set a great foundation for the program. So even while their record doesn't indicate that they had a great year, I think the results for our program over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years couldn't have been in place were it not for the work they did, even though they didn't get to reap the benefit of it. So anyway, in 2013, that group of what were sophomores and juniors we had ended up being juniors and seniors. We went 11-2.
Man,
we went to the 3rd round. We were defeated by Tanner that went on and won the state championship, and we had them on the ropes. We were up 14-12 in the 4th quarter, and they scored on a busted coverage and ended up winning the game. But we were right there. And then in 2014, we went 12-1, and it started a stretch of seasons, 7 consecutive years where we made the playoffs and had a winning season. And in the history of our school, that had never been done before. So you look at a 7-year run of having done that, that's not about one coach, that's not about one player. That our current seniors who did that in the fall of 2019 were 5th graders when we started doing that in 13, so to see those guys come in and continue to build on that success and to grow the legacy of the guys that came before them, it's really an immersive, buy-in from so many people. And look, I know we didn't win a state championship in that time. There are always things you could do for your program that would be greater, but I'm really proud of the consistency that we had in that time period. As great players came and went, we always had people step up and respond who folks outside of our program didn't expect much out of, but those guys were invested. So I'm just so proud of all the kids that I coached in that time, and I'm really thankful for them every day.
One thing that stuck out to me is you talking about kids buying in. And one thing I seen when you did your presentation to Southside is you actually had a vision up there, and you said if you visually cannot think it, then it's not going to come into existence.
That's right.
And how did you instill that in these guys over here that young? When you come in, when did you really see it taking hold over here at Montgomery Academy?
So the summer heading into 2013. It rained every day that summer, and I remember doing so much of our work in the gym that year. And we had a group of guys. We had a running back at the time, Justin Woolfolk, who went on to play 4 years at Birmingham Southern. We had an offensive tackle / Mike linebacker. You got to love 3A for that reason. Who ends up. He actually graduated from Princeton, played rugby there. Yeah,
that's amazing.
And we had a linebacker, Sam McLean, who now coaches at Rhodes College, among many other kids in that class. Those are just a few. And we had so connected with that group of kids that I remember just when we were in the gym in the summer, putting them through incredibly difficult workouts, agility stations and things that, a year before we weren't capable of pushing them that hard. Mm-hmm. To see the way that they changed their perspective to understand that those things were actually fun. It would be, when we would rotate from one drill to the next, it was like a party in that gym. I mean, they were just so enthusiastic about what they were doing. And they really adopted this idea that what we're going to be about is we talked about at the time, win the day, but really what we meant by that is win the moment, win the rep that we're in. If what we're doing right now is stretching, let's win stretching. Let's win the squat rack, let's win the agility station. And they really just adopted that identity. And the great thing about it is those kids, they knew how to be successful in the classroom. They knew how to be successful in their co-curricular life. I'll never forget that there was a group of them who, we hosted Sandrock in the first round of the playoffs, and we had our choral ensemble sing the national anthem. So our two linebackers and our running back get out and sing the national anthem, then put their helmet on, go on the kickoff team and light somebody up. Awesome. And so, that's just who those kids were.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And, so we essentially how we turned it around is, we connected with some special individuals in our program. And I think ultimately that what we're all trying to do is figure out who has the opportunity to become a special individual and how can we connect with them and draw that out. There are a lot of great kids, and for whatever reason, the right buttons haven't been pushed. And so our job as coaches is to figure out what we can do to get them to be their very best, the best version of themselves. And that's really what we're trying to do every day.
And at Southside, you taking this job, and they've had some good seasons, but it's it's an up and down type thing. To get that consistency like you had here, definitely going to take some work. When you first watched film on Southside, what jumped out at you good, and what jumped out at you that you like, we need to work with this?
Yeah, so the thing that jumps out that's so good is how many players we rotated up front, on the offensive line particularly, but on the O-line and D-line, and how hard they play. Those guys are warriors. They really have some tough linemen. They weren't always, I think, in the best positions. I think some of that they had some mental mistakes and some things like that young kids tend to have, and they were very young up front. And so there's some things that you want to correct, but when you look overall at the effort and the speed with which the linemen are playing, that's really encouraging. Those kids are getting after you, and I can pull the film up and I can show some blocks that are like things we can build on moving forward. So, it was important to me that I see effort up front when I watch the film. If you're not doing that, you're not going to be very good. It starts in the box. I think the other thing is we've got a quarterback in Michael Rich that is a very talented guy. He can make all the throws. I think that he needs to be given a specific plan for what he needs to do to be better. And I think that he'll respond to that when he's gotten it. I think he's got to understand where he has to grow as a leader. We talk to our quarterbacks here about, you are the quarterback because everyone on the field is better because you're in the huddle. If the rest of those guys aren't better because you're in the huddle, you're not the quarterback. And so I think Rich is going to have to learn, to be a leader first and to be a talented football player second. And the great news is, I think he's gonna gravitate toward that role. We've got a running back in Cornell Davis who just won the state wrestling championship in his weight class, and who's an absolute warrior. I watch this kid play, and I'm like, my gosh, there's a lot of things we can do with him. And there were some times when we weren't putting him in real good situations, sort of with our scheme relative to the defenses that we're seeing, and he's still gaining yards, and he's gaining tough yards. And so those things are encouraging. And you look out on the perimeter with Cody and Alden, and a lot of these guys we have coming back, our tight end Hayden, and we just feel like we will return 10 guys on offense. So we've got the opportunity there to take and build on something. We've just got to find some ways to use those strengths a little better. And to get those guys playing hard consistently. You flip it over defensively, and you watch, and I was really encouraged by the guys in the secondary. They're pretty fearless, and a lot of them, a lot of those guys return. So, Sharp and the linebackers, Hayden Fry, and I just feel like there's so many of those guys who have played a lot of football, and who really got better as the year went on. And their success didn't necessarily reflect that. But they had a weird year in terms of injuries and guys kind of coming and going. And, I don't think that was really a 2-8 football team. I think that the record doesn't reflect the quality of personnel that they had. So, those guys they're people that I'm encouraged to get to coach. And, if you look at kind of if you're asking the good and the bad and the ugly, when I look at some things that I watch and I'm kind of like, oh boy, I kind of want to turn that off. Is when I watch us in the kicking game and in special teams. We had some guys, and again we were young. The consistency of effort that it takes to be successful. You show me a good football team in Alabama, I'll show you a team who's winning the kicking game. And we had guys that were taking plays off in the kicking game. We were never laying out to try to block a PAT. We were never really aggressively trying to go block a punt. We weren't sustaining our blocks on the kickoff return. And we get punts blocked and we give up kickoff returns for touchdowns. And so I watch that kind of stuff, and that is just reflective of where the program was in terms of a bunch of young players, some kids who were thrown in the fire a little earlier than they needed to be, and just that inconsistency of effort, and I really don't think that I don't mean that to reflect poorly on anything that was in place. It was just a weird season for them. So when I watch all of that, I really feel like you can come in on day one and focus on building blocks in those areas, and you really have a chance to continue to grow and continue to get better. But ultimately, all of that is sort of putting the cart before the horse, because where what we've really got to address is this idea that you can come and go in the summer. That's an illusion, right? Like you are welcome to not come in the summer and go do something else with your time in the fall.
Right.
But if you're going to be a Southside Panther, you're going to come in here in the summer and you're going to put the work in. And I think what was happening a lot of times is some guys found it easy to throw their hands up on Friday night because they had no skin in the game based on what they had invested in the spring and in the summer. So, kind of coming in and building this thing, and it's similar to what we did in MA. I mean, when I got there, the summer had very little participation. And, by the time I leave, I've got 88, 89% of our kids who are in what we call the Iron Eagles, which are our people who, come to the most workouts in the summer. So Southside's going to be the same way. We've just got to educate our kids on the idea that, again, it's not really a choice. If you want to be good, you've got to come put the work in.
Absolutely, mate. That's true. And also, I know I heard you speak on the community and taking Barney Hood back and really defending that.
Absolutely.
What do you think the first steps to make that place immediately get it back like it used to be for Southside?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is people are going to be excited to come in and support our team if they see good representatives of our program and its values out, walking the hallways of Southside High School and in the businesses and in the restaurants. And people need to know that our football program is not some place for kids to go hide when they don't want to do things the right way. That our football program is full of guys who are going to do things the right way. Doing things the right way is a choice. If my name's attached to it, it's going to be done right. It's going to be done right. When we talk about there's only two ways to approach any task, the wrong way and the Panther way. So, it really is for us, about them going out and being ambassadors of our program in the community, and people realizing that, like, wow, this is a good kid, a hardworking kid. This is a kid who I can get behind. I'll come out on Friday night and watch. So that really, again, is what are we putting on the field in terms of our intangibles and our character values and things like that. So we want to get that going first. I think the second thing is it's about engaging the community, and that starts with me. You know, I can't ask people to come out and watch a football game if I'm not willing to go to to a basketball game, if I'm not willing to go to a baseball game, if I'm not willing to go to the spring musical or whatever the case may be. You know, Southside is a rallying opportunity for that community. The entire communities of Southside and Rainbow City rally around that high school. You know, and again, we're not going to get that buy-in on a Friday night in the fall if they see me 10 times a year.
That's right.
So, you know, I really think that myself and our coaching staff and our players have to be really visible in the community, and you know, that can't just be a one-sided relationship. We're not just there to take from the community, right? We're there to give something to the community. So it's just important to me that everybody involved really adopts that mindset early on. And you know, I think that there's an appetite there for our kids and our coaches and our parents to want to do that. I mean, they want it to feel like one Southside. And if you look at the baseball program and the success they're having, you know, it really is a fixture in the community right now. You know, and that's just what we want to be. So, you know, I think if you start all the way around, yeah, and I think if you start doing that, you know, and you build relationships with the youth players and the youth coaches. Now they're asking their parents if they can come to the game on Friday night, and you know, I think at some point you hit that moment where you tip the scales, and all of a sudden the floodgates open, and everybody goes like, "Wow, we can really do this," and the community comes out. And you know, ultimately, that's what, I mean, my goal is that Barney Hood will be the best game day atmosphere in the state of Alabama, and I don't see a reason why we can't.
It's pretty amazing now, but I'm telling you, if your plan comes together, I can only imagine what it's going to be like.
No doubt.
Now, I know what it takes to be a player of yours. We spoke on that. What's it going to take to be on your staff? What do you expect from your coaches?
You have to be willing to put the players first. It is not about who had the idea. You know, we talked a lot at MA. We really had three principles that governed our interactions as a coaching staff, and that was to humble yourself, govern your attitude, and do your job. And so that's really where it starts. I don't have to have the idea. We just need someone to have the idea, right? And so I never want our coaches to feel like yes men. That's something that I've really from the very beginning of meeting them, I've said, look, I need your candor, I need your authenticity. I need the coaches to be the experts on Southside right now, because I'm learning people. I'm learning the community. I'm learning the kids. Those guys know our players. They know our strengths better than I do. So, you know, coming in, it's really important that they feel like the trust is there for them to be able to speak freely. And I really want that from them. You know, so really what it looks like to be a part of our staff is, you know, whatever has to be done to put our kids in a position to be successful, let's go do it. If that means that we have to change up some things that we're doing in terms of our schemes, in terms of our programming, in terms of our workout programming, whatever it is we have to do, let's not leave a stone unturned that could help our kids have success, because I'm a big believer that coaches exist for the betterment of players. And I told the kids this my first day there. I said, you know, some people were asking me, like, you know, they were a little confused about, you know, why Southside? Because, like, you're from the south part of the state. Like, why are you moving up there? And, you know, for me, it's interesting that, like, to think about, like, Southside football doesn't even exist, right? Montgomery Academy football doesn't exist. Well, it exists because we have players. So everything we do is going to be about them, and that's really the philosophy. You know, and what I'm so happy with so far is the way that the coaches, you know, have just been really easy to work with, and there's a good staff in place. Yeah. You know, and opportunities to grow that even further. So I've been really happy with that so far.
I know you speak a lot about how the players carry themselves in the community. I've heard you speak on that numerous times, but I also hear in your voice and in your actions, you seem to be a faith-based coach. Can you talk about your faith and what that's been for you?
Yeah. So you know, it's very difficult to describe the way that my faith has evolved over the years. And it's incredible that one guide can be the guide that the 12-year-old version of me needed, and the 18-year-old version of me needed, and the 22-year-old version of me, and the 32-year-old version of me needed. And to me, that's just such an incredible expression of the love that God has for us, that manifested itself in Jesus Christ. There have been times where what I needed was the opportunity to grow relationally with people around me. And God put those people in my life that would help grow my faith. And I talked earlier about, Coach McCall at MA. He was such a strong man of faith and a man of God. And he's really the person that I model myself after professionally. Coach David Bethay at MA that I work with every day is just an incredible, faithful, hopeful guy. And they were put in my life in moments where, I needed to grow relationally with people who were faithful. My wife is just the greatest example of striving to be like Christ. And she was put into my life because I needed to become a better man. And she's challenged me to do that every day. And then when we had our children, I needed to see God a little differently than I did initially. And then our daughter Lucy, who's now 2, she'll be 3 in May, and she's the most precious thing I've ever seen. She was born with cleft lip and palate. And so when we found out that she was going to be born with a little bit of a medical issue, the God we needed then was one of strength. And it's just so incredible to me that, that there's been such an outpouring in our life. And then, where I find myself now is, as I take this opportunity to take a step professionally and to go to an area where I literally I don't know anybody. And what I feel like right now is that, we serve a God of hope, that there's no plan A or plan B for our lives, right? That we're walking through the doors that He's opened for us. And we feel like the door He's opened for us right now is Southside. And that's not to say that we won't miss the doors we've walked through here. We certainly will. We're going to miss our friends. We're going to miss our church. I'm going to miss MA. But the door that I feel called to walk through right now is Southside. So, that's really where we're at. And I think that when you are obedient to that, there's a peace that comes with it. So, it's certainly, and that's kind of a long-winded way of describing my personal faith.
Oh, I love it.
But then, how that manifests itself, with our players, is really just about growing those relationships, and it's them understanding that, even if I'm not standing in the front of the room and overtly sharing my faith with them, that I hope they see, a presence that, makes them understand that, like, maybe growing up isn't such a bad thing, right? Because if I'll put my trust in the right things, I can continue to be happy. I can continue to be joyful. I can continue to, sort of have an outpouring of all these good things. And so, really my hope is that we model that for our kids. And then, there's so much that it doesn't have to be said if that's the case.
Well, Coach, I appreciate it. It's been a true honor, and we cannot wait to get you up there and just the start of a good relationship with us and you, and looking forward to seeing you and covering you this year and this fall.
Well, look, I appreciate that, and I want to thank you for. Our kids in this area are so blessed to have the coverage that we get. You want to be in a place where your kids' accomplishments can be celebrated, where they're covered, where they're talked about, and I think for you guys to show up on Sunday and shoot those videos, and for you to come down here and do this. That shows that you guys are invested in our kids, right? Absolutely. And, I think that it makes a difference in the life of our kids. And, there's always that, 11-year-old who rushes to click on the website so he can see what's happening at the high school,
True.
And to me, it's just such an inspiring piece of what y'all do, that you share the story of our kids. And I'm going to tell you this about Southside. There are so many stories to share. As I'm just walking through the threshold of that door I talked about, I'm already seeing seeing that there's so much there that, you know, is ready to be shared. And as I continue to learn that, you know, I can't wait to share it with you guys and with your audience and with the entire area, you know, and ultimately for this to become something that everybody in our community is proud of, you know, and really, regardless of what side of a rivalry or of a game you stand on a Friday night, you know, what we're all about in this state really should be what's best for our kids who are in school right now, you know, and so for you guys to make the investments that you do in making sure that our kids are celebrated, you know, to me that just strengthens what we're asking our kids to do. So I can't tell you how appreciative I am of what you guys are doing.
I appreciate you, and I'm really humbled to hear that. I thank you so much.
Thank you.